What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. More Birthright for you here as we work our way through the Brecht realms. We're getting close to wrapping up the Western Basin states, and one of the most fun realms in this whole area is the Vampire's Hold. So there's so much cool stuff here, and we'll cover the Vampire in more detail later on when we look at all the different Anshe, but this is just a cool one. Definitely a lot of fun adventuring potential to have here. So it is a chaotic evil realm, as you can probably guess. Not one that's available for PCs. Certainly not with the Vampire running around. It's a smaller realm, too. It's only got 3 provinces. And then, as it says here, the names they bore before the Vampire came are forgotten. So an interesting adventuring angle that you could take is, as with so many of these Anshe, like maybe a whole campaign, a pretty epic one built around maybe causing some sort of actual resistance, maybe trying to even take down an Anshe like this would be potent, and sort of just restoring the realm to maybe whatever it was before, which, fertile ground for you and the DM to come up with that. But then also really just kind of like being epic heroes and sort of, how often in the setting would you really get to sort of re-found a whole nation? So, but anyway, we'll talk about that more. Provinces, so you got 3, as we mentioned. You got a level 4 and 2 level 3s here. As you might expect, the Vampire is the law of the land. There is a teeny tiny guild here and then some temple activity as well. No sources whatsoever, though. So the Vampire here counts as a level 10 fighter. Again, we'll get into more detail when we cover the Anshe in a different series. But as you might expect, Azrai Bloodline, great, damn near 50, so that's pretty potent. He's got 3 generals who rule his provinces for him, so as you can guess, 1 per province. So while he pretends to be a creature of law, evil though he may be, he is too chaotic in nature to rule on his own. The temples, you have, rather than like more true religions here, you got basically 2 competing cults, so always fun stuff here. So 2 cults unique in Birthright have sprung up in the Vampire's Hold. The Black Church of Alanecht is one of the few temples to the Prince of Terror in the region. The Temple of the White Hand is its sister church, as you can guess, so some Voss influence there as far as the religion goes with Belanik and Krisha. The guild activity here, so the Vampire controls what little trade he permits in his realm. Few trade routes have ever been formed between this domain and the outside world, however, as you can guess the reasons for that. The Vampire secretly fears wizards and magic. He may believe wizardly magic will someday be his downfall. He permits no source holders in his domain and has discouraged even the Sayer of Kulavi from making any attempts. So that can kind of give you a level on where he stands power-wise, too. Now, there is, for the DM here again, he's got a decent amount of regency accumulated should we be playing the campaign level and have to interact with him as far as opposing realms that maybe want to try and start tackling him or interfering or interacting with him. Decent little treasury built up, but definitely on the smaller scale for a lot of these Brecht realms, but also it's only a 3-province realm. So it does have a bit of an army, though, and they're always scattered throughout the domain. It's nothing huge, but they're basically there to just watch the citizens and terrify whatever civilian population there is. However, since most citizens are criminals or refugees from other realms, he's got little need to worry about them escaping to Roarmarch or beyond. But he does keep a close eye on his subjects because, again, he's kind of paranoid in that sense, right? Could be some wizards hiding or something like that. So, as you might expect with a creature like that. However, when they gather together to actually maybe have like a pitched battle versus an adversary, you get 3 units of infantry and then just a unit of cavalry. Nothing fancy, no elite units as you would maybe expect in other realms would seem out of place here. Now, the Vampire also has a special army of bats and creatures of the night that he can call on through the Shadow World to attack enemies at their weakest points, so you gotta have that to contend with. But again, given that a lot of the big bads in this setting are sort of like the prototypes of their given like creature names, so like the Vampire, right, the Chimera, and so on and so forth. So some of his abilities should come as a bit of a surprise or shock to unwitting adventurers. So, but basically, yeah, and as it says here, so recently he's been adding to his forces with undead legions via his temple sources too. So, yeah, you got all that to contend with, and those are very powerful in the military sub-game here, the battle sub-game. Now, the Regent, the Vampire, was once known as Britter Cult, fun name, rules through his lieutenants. No doubt exists in the mind of those who know him that the Sinister's dark blood drove him mad, but he survives. An earlier Anshe, by the way, the Sinister. He drinks blood like a true vampire, and some theorize that he managed to increase the overall strength of his bloodline from major to great by draining blooded victims. So again, we have that other layer that goes on in Birthright. So again, I was liking it to like Highlander, where they're trying to kill other people from that, and then like essentially gaining their powers. So in this, you can hunt other blooded characters essentially and gain their powers, but depending on their bloodline duration, could end up turning you evil, like anything that has Azrai and so on. So other important NPCs. So he's got those 3 generals that we mentioned, and basically they function as his lieutenants as far as the realm running operations go. So they're outlined in Blood Enemies. Again, we're going to cover that separately just because it'd really make this for much too long of a video. But there are some new ones here. So include Three Finger Call and Amara the Wizard. Three Finger Call is very high level thief for the setting, level 11. Minor bloodline is actually neutral, but he comes from the Burrows, as you might expect. It's a halfling, and is a supposed refugee from the Halfling Council's justice. He's been sent to investigate the vampire's incursions into the Shadow World. So, though he would never reveal this to anyone, Three Finger and his employers are actually worried that he may breach the veil with the Shadow World and the real world, and that's where basically the halflings in the setting have fled from, is the Shadow World, because there's more evil lurking there. So there you could understand the rightful concern there. And the Burrows is really another fun realm we'll look at, a halfling realm, not too far away from this geographically. So, and then we have Amara the Wizard, so relatively low here. Well, I should say mid-level, but level 6, a neutral good character. She came to the realm on another mission, but teamed up with the halfling spy out of convenience and curiosity. She believes she was born to rule a source domain, but was cheated out of her bloodline. Hearing that the vampire's provinces were completely empty of wizards and wizardly magic, she came here hoping to somehow gain a bloodline. Doesn't have one, as we saw above. And then gain control of an unclaimed source. Now, while not the most rational of ambitions, especially going into unknown Anshe's realm, now he certainly wouldn't kill her for her bloodline, but she might get killed nonetheless. But she is not the most rational of people, as we can kind of guess here. Now, though, she uses her minor magical powers to shield herself and call from the vampire spies, and they do their best to disrupt the vampire's grip on his domain. But again, just a sort of a 2-person effort isn't going to get much done. As it mentions, they're an unlikely team, but really, as far as anyone knows, really they're the only opposition to the Anshe. But that would be a fun venturing hook, is maybe somehow encountering them. Could be either that you aid them in some way. Maybe they're about to be discovered or attacked by the vampire's forces. Maybe they finally got caught up with them, or maybe they rescue you and then kind of recruit you to their cause. So there's a lot of different things that could be done there to really build a resistance for real. But as it mentions, most of the populace is criminals, but then some refugees as well. So it's really just a matter of finding those who would likely not turn on you, but would maybe want to see the vampire go away. Now, allies. We're skipping ahead here a little bit. Let's jump in here with a description. So the mountain ranges and deciduous forests that cover the vampire's domain are shrouded in shadow throughout all the seasons. Very thematic, right? Small pockets of cleared land exist for farming, and a few people in the realm are able to ignore the threat of their regents to make a good life, or what passes for good life, for themselves. But more and more often, the troops seize profitable harvests and liberate farm workers for their own purposes, and misery spreads all over the realm, basically. So they're just there to be bullies and thugs, not really any sort of army for protection. Now, the city's Bloodshroud, fun name, is a dark city built in the manner of older Brecht town. So imagine medieval Germanic village, or not village, but town with, again, sort of the horror trappings that you could expect here with the vampire. Long, low-roofed buildings and winding cobblestone streets make up the settlement. Generously placed lanterns provide the only dim reddish illumination at night, and sometimes even during the day. So again, awesome little piece of artwork here. There's not nearly enough really in the Birthright books, but sometimes they do give you some pretty decent ones. But you can get a kind of a sense from that there. So pretty dark and gloomy looking. Then moving on, there's obviously no ally that would essentially tolerate him. Now, his position in the region keeps Kiergaard and Massenmarch from invading the war-torn Rormark, so he's kind of got this interesting linchpin fact happening here. Kind of ironically, that he's kind of keeping other more worse conflicts from happening. And the fact that the vampire is too chaotic to ally with anyone, really. Which is probably a good thing, right? Because again, you could ally with the Swordhawk, which would really be a pretty potent team up, or even the Gorgon, of course. Not that the Gorgon needs anyone's help, but that just would be from bad to worse, really. So, but anyway, as it says here. The fact that, again, he doesn't ally essentially helps these basin states that are still relatively close to the Gorgon's domain, but also the ones that are near the Swordhawk. It really honestly just helps out more than actually hurts the other states. So in a certain ironic sense, it's good that he doesn't have any allies and no one's going to ally with him or want to as well. So he kind of keeps some other things in check. And that's kind of the neat thing here with big theme throughout the Western Basin states, just because of, again, everything's so interconnected, and there's, some of these realms are bordering on other major players. Again, we'll just use the Gorgon's crown as an example. That should anything disrupt, and that's kind of the tough part of running a campaign as far as ruling a domain goes. If you are disrupting the sort of status quo, you got to be prepared for a lot of other consequences, and that would be really a challenge for the DM too. Is to really, you can't just learn one or two of the realms. So you really got to kind of understand how they're all interconnected, and if this happens in this realm, how will the other realms really react, and so on and so forth. But if you can pull that off in a campaign, it can really show players also the consequences of their actions, good or bad, or things that are intended as good, maybe getting rid of one of these bad guys, but really then causing things to sort of destabilize. So you can almost think of it as like a sort of a chain reaction of kind of like maybe how World War One started, in the sense that this domino fell, then this domino and this domino, and one thing led to another. But anyway, we're getting off topic too much there. Enemies, certainly plenty of enemies, right? Kierkegaard worries about a sneak attack from the vampire, and rightly so. The vampire sees the open, blasted area to the northwest as virtually unprotected, the Gorgon's armies notwithstanding. At some point, Bittercult's pride and the vampire's insanity may unite and force an invasion of Kierkegaard, probably at the worst possible time for the Gorgon's erstwhile lieutenants. That being said, now he's, as we know, he's building up his undead legions, so that's going to be pretty potent. But as far as existing standing army, not too scary, although they could certainly cause some chaos as well. So, then finally, special conditions. When alchemists and magicians from across Brechtur and Weir and Knassi petitioned the vampire for permission to explore the Vicissitude Mountains, they hoped to uncover new secrets within the vampire's hold about the nature of magic. It's still a curious choice to even petition an Anche for permission. So when the vampire granted this permission, they were overjoyed. Knowledge that might aid millions across Cerulia might be found. When they hoped for this, they underestimated the vampire, of course. All the expeditions uniformly ended in some sort of disaster. Earthquake here, flood there, few quote-unquote bandit attacks, eliminated all but a few explorers. The few sages who escaped with their lives brought back little to the outside world, because they're probably scared shitless. But rumor has it that the vampire's lieutenants hold a few of these explorers and sages in the region's own dungeons, to extract information on the outside world. They want the knowledge gleaned from the vicissitudes for themselves as well. That's another aspect. And they're not subtle about extracting it. So, sort of plenty of threats that the vampire could make in that regard, and the servants as well. The vampire still welcomes small parties of explorers into his domain, but a safe return is doubtful. And that could be like that hook that gets people interested. So maybe you do have a wizard in the party, but, maybe the wizard quickly learns. You hear rumors that, the wizards aren't so welcome here, that maybe he's paranoid about that. Maybe there is someone that kind of tips you off to that. Maybe a local who really does kind of wish to start working against the vampire, but that could be that hook to get you in there. Maybe some researchers as part of the party, and just on the hunt for maybe whatever magic or riches or rumored treasure. Again, those hooks to get the people in the realm, but then kind of almost like a horror movie. It starts out nice. As nice as it can be. Obviously, you're going into an Anche's realm, but then things start to go bad. Maybe some of these random attacks happen, like just earthquake, flood, bandit attacks, whatever it is. And then at some point you should be brought into conflict with some of the vampire's forces, but again, that could also then get you connected with the spy and the female wizard there. So there's a lot of neat little hooks here, but this is definitely one of my favorite little realms of the whole Brecht setting. Very iconic, but also a lot of potential here for someone to have great adventuring possibilities. And certainly would be one where if you were running a campaign as far as ruling realms go, and somehow managed to just finally take this over, annihilate the vampire, or force him to flee and take over the realm and essentially fix it, you would certainly gain a lot of prestige and be hailed as kind of like a major hero. But again, that will draw the attention of some of the other heavier hitters out there. So let us know what you think, guys. The Vampire's Hold, an awesome one. Any existing adventures that you've had, campaigns around there, what do you think you would do DM wise or role playing wise? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll have more for you soon.